And I really help empower people through business masterminds, automating their business. I really am obsessed with small businesses. And it's my joy to be here with Sam Halliwell, who is a coach, intuitive guide, and founder of the Embodied Alchemy Method. And she is helping women with endometriosis just kind of reclaim that power, purpose, and well being from the inside out. So, welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Now, I would be curious. I have a close friend of mine, Rahali. She's got endo, and she's also, it's been a long journey for her to kind of go from it being really debilitating in her business, in her job, and then getting to a point that she can really function. And I know there's groups out there, etc. So I think it's really important that you're doing this type of work. So I love to hear, how was it before you learned all these tools? And it sounds like after you learned them, you started teaching them. So I'd like to hear a little bit about
hmm
your journey.
Yeah, of course. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s, but had suffered for many years before that, which is so commonly the case for women with endo. It takes a long time to diagnose, and there's a lot of dismissal and things that go on that mean that exacerbate that, right? And I had what's known as stage 4 endo, which is the highest level. So that means it was all over my body, over multiple places. What that meant day to day was the simplest thing was so hard. Socializing with friends, I couldn't make appointments with people because I knew I'd have to cancel quite willy nilly. Trying to get into work was a challenge. I was in a high powered corporate job at the time, demanding managerial level role. And when the endo flares hit, it's so all encompassing that trying to do a job like that's really hard. I remember the amount of times I'd be literally curled up trying to work and tap away at my keyboard, but trying so desperately to get into the fetal position, pulling a hot water bottle so tight into my body that it leaves permanent burns eventually. Taking painkillers and having to juggle, oh, I can't take that one yet because I need to drive in 2 hours and I can't drive on that one, but I really am in pain, and trying to do what I call medication math, trying to find the right sweet spot of getting everything. And then that day at work would take so much out of me just to get through it, quite frankly. By the time I get home, I had nothing left
Mm.
at all. Like I was just a mess. So I'd not be able to. It affected then my home life with my partner, now husband, and anybody around me. They didn't get the best of me because there was no such thing. They'd even get a decent version of me because everything I had would be trying to keep my job, knowing that without it I'd be really I'd be really stuck. But it was hell being in pain that much. And then you've got the fertility side of it as well. Endo's got a high rate of infertility, and hearing people at work having, pregnancy announcements when I'd have just had a failed one, and those kind of things really play havoc on your mental health, let alone that your physical health is absolutely whopping you.
Yeah, that sounds really, really rough. And, something I've noticed in business, especially ones that are really purpose driven, is we serve a prior version of ourselves and we become experts at the thing that we need most for ourselves. And so it sounds like for the last 5 years, you're in a place where you're taking that knowledge and it's now a business that you're helping others deal with this very difficult condition.
Mm-hmm.
And so beautiful. And that's why we want you on the show
Mm-hmm.
and to hear that journey and to inspire people that sometimes that pain or those difficulties we go into our lives are reasons and give us our purpose to go out and serve others. And you've been doing this for 5 years now, which
Mm-hmm.
is really beautiful. And are you a solopreneur? Are you wearing all the hats yourself in this business?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, big visions one day that it'll be a big company and lots of things going on, but at the moment it's little old me.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, many of us are doing this and it can create the time and the space to do business our own way, in our own vision, at our own time, in our own cycles. right? You were speaking earlier before the show about how you figured out ways to work within that endo cycle. And, and there's other ways to work with we have different cycles in our lives, and working within in them is really crucial, and not fighting against them. And I'm
So
curious,
crucial.
as you're building this and you're doing this on your own, what have some of the biggest challenges been for
Mm,
you, the
mm.
difficulties?
Yeah, it's a good point because there's in any business, but especially as a solopreneur, the with everything on you, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it comes to one person, right?
Yeah.
I'm lucky in that my husband is also runs his own business, so he is a support system that when things get challenged, I can have a chat with him and get some ideas and some vibes and some support. And a lot of it then is honouring my own self and my own energy, especially because of the work I do. It's uh, when things get tough, which they do. There's no business that's easy, and anybody that says different is probably kidding themselves a tad. So it's honouring what I need, but also what the business needs, and it's learning. Because my previous corporate career was as an accountant. It means that some parts of running a business, like the finances, that's easy. I can do that bit in my sleep. I've done that for 20 years or whatever it is. But then other parts, like the marketing, that's just gobbledygook to me when I first tried to go into that world. And it's trying to learn it and also giving it a go. I think one of the biggest things with a passion-led business, as opposed to a different type of business that doesn't have that core, it's about showing up authentically and giving something a go, because you learn so much in the trying, you learn so much in the doing, and showing up. If I show up always as me, then I can always, at least even on the tough time scale, do you know what? I was still me. I wasn't trying to be somebody else. I think it's harder to justify making an error when you're being somebody else. And then, yeah, having support system. That's then the biggest thing. That's helped me, knowing, as I say, speaking to my hubby, but also just knowing other people who are in the same sort of place in their business and further ahead that you can go to and hear from, makes such a difference. But yeah, there's been challenges for sure. One of the biggest has been on the marketing side for me personally, just because it's a skill that I was not born with. So trying
Yeah.
to get my head around all these strange terminology that make absolutely no sense. But I'm learning.
Yeah, I mean that's part of being the entrepreneur, wearing those hats. It's for me, it's actually the same. I'm really, really good. I've got, over 30 years, founded 22 businesses, not including a bunch of other foundations. And I love the parts of building the business. I love the back end. I love the techie stuff. And I would get to the marketing and I'd always hand it to someone else, and they do a crappy job of that. And then I'd get frustrated and be like, I just spent thousands of dollars on marketing and advertising and there's no results. You know, and I realized at some point that I was like, I have to learn this for myself. And I started looking for courses, and I was like, how do you set up these meta pixels and LinkedIn tracking pixels for correct ROI conversions? And what it really brought me to, there's not a lot of good information out there. And it's one of the reasons why I started doing weekly masterminds. It's with, founders like yourself. And what we do is we support each other in that. And then when we see that there's, uh, issues going on, if multiple people have marketing, we do research, or I'll do research, find these automated tools, because if we don't understand something ourselves, we're relying on others, and that can get really expensive. And a lot of small
Mm.
business owners don't have that capital to be throwing tons of money at things that don't work. So, I also have found the marketing part not particularly enjoyable. So I had to change my perspective and said, okay, I'm really good at everything else. I'm going to get really good at the marketing. And, I've taken all these courses. I took this like pro VSL course from Peter Kell, and I'm like, wow, this feels really good to be empowered in this thing. So, there's also some joy in the learning. As entrepreneurs, we're generally very curious.
Absolutely, and the learning, so the marketing course that I happen to be doing told me a great story of a study where um, the students were split into two groups to make some sort of pottery vase or something out of pottery. And these two groups, one was going to be marked on quality and one on
Yeah.
quantity. And it was the group that had the quantity that actually produced the best quality, even though they weren't marked on quality, because they just whizzed out as many pots as they could because they were marked on quantity, and they learnt so much from the huge quantity, whereas those who were focused on quality were so obsessed about perfection they never actually made a damn vase. Or when they did, what was in their head wasn't coming out in their hands. And so their
Yeah.
perfectionism completely put them backwards. And that really sticks in my head as something, because I think as well as a solopreneur, one of the things you also have to do, and it's so hard when it's a passion-led business, but you have to be able to separate yourself a little bit as well, that it's not personal, which is incredibly hard. I'm sensitive and empathic by nature as a person, but it isn't. Things aren't personal generally day to day, and those that are, it's the other person's stuff. So being able to have some separation, which again is where a good support network really comes in, is so important, because otherwise you can get so spun in your head about something that actually in 6 months' time won't matter to anybody.
Yeah, I think the lessons I've heard, and I've seen that study, and it's a good one. It's like the idea is go out and do it.
Yeah.
Just make your first vase, make your first pot. And I always joke, I always say the first pancake always looks funny. And by the third pancake, it's a silly analogy, but I think it's very true for business, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like go out there and do it. And just by doing it, you're going to figure it out there better. And then you're going to iterate, and it's going to get, more and more aligned. It's going to get more you. It's going to become more authentic. You're going to do things. And the other thing I heard from you is the taking things personal. And I have to tell you, to this day, after all these years of business, when I see an unsubscribe on on a newsletter, an email, it always still hurts my feelings a little bit. Or if I send out one and you get a bunch of unsubscribes, you're just like, especially when we're doing more work that's very intimate or personal to who we are, it can be really hard emotionally to get those rejections. And it's learning to sit with that. And, cognitively, we know it's not about me. It's not about the offer. And then there's something in your heart that's just like, oh, it hurts, I remember even I told a friend of mine, he had unsubscribed. He's like, sent me a message like, wow, I really love this email that you sent. It was a beautiful update. And then I noticed that it was unsubscribed after. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to lie. It hurt my feelings. He's like, actually, I had 2 emails on there. So that's why I took one off. But I just remember the feeling
Yeah.
of that. And it can be a real challenge doing business, especially when it's so close to your heart.
It can, and especially actually with a chronic illness in tow as well, because when we have those moments of being wiped out or saddened or hurt by something, chronic illness has a way of exacerbating that, and vice versa, that those feelings and those challenges also exacerbate the illness, and it becomes this kind of spiraling process of getting worse and worse and worse, both mentally and physically, and it can really kind of spin you out. And that's then a big part of, I suppose, where the not taking things personally kind of then comes from what I then do on the endo side of it as well, which is that, coming back to oneself, what is it that I'm feeling? And it doesn't mean not feeling anything. Gosh, that would be so much easier, but that's just not true. But it's then when those feelings do come up that, oh gosh, that really hurt that happened. Okay, and if I take a breath, what else could this be about? What is it that it's reminding me of? What is it that I'm holding that is meaning this is hurting in that particular way? And by examining ourselves in that way, which isn't always easy, sometimes is, but isn't always, it allows us to really open and heal other deeper parts of ourselves that we're not even aware exist. And those things then, the healing that comes from them is not just in the moment, but it ripples out to everything.
So beautiful. I love that. Thank you, Sam. I think in just hearing all this, one, I feel your authenticity, which feels really good. And I think that's missing in a lot of people who are putting out offers and things of the sort. And I even know from my own experience, it's been a challenge to try to find an authentic voice out in the world, and then you get these uh these social media people come in and it's like you got to do X then Y and then Z, and then you got your phone and you're doing it like this, and then you watch it and you just almost cringe on yourself and you're like, that's not who I am.
Mm.
So, and what I realized is you have to find that authenticity in your own way. And so I started asking myself, when do I feel the most authentic? And it's like when I'm having a conversation with
Mm.
someone, so for me, it feels authentic to do things like this, like podcasts, and have these conversations. And then it's like, okay, great. Then that works. Lean into that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel authentic to throw juggle the balls in the air to get the right hook. And it probably doesn't work as well as being in a bikini and falling off the side of a cliff or whatever it is. And you know, it's not who I want to be. So like how do we show up in that way?
Hmm.
And in your do you have other ways? You were talking earlier about getting support, and it's really important for us entrepreneurs to have that support. What kind of support do you get besides having, your partner that you can bounce ideas off of, which is awesome? Are there other ways that you do it?
Yeah, so I have a good group of friends and also a group of people who I almost say colleagues, but they're not because because I'm not in business with them. But there are other people who have their own businesses who have similar alignment,
Mm.
and the ability to be able to talk in those spaces where we hoist each other up and really help each other. That's really important. And then those people who are further ahead. So there's also quite a few people who I'd kind of put in the mentor category. They're not officially mentors, but they definitely would fall into that category for me. And they would be someone I could ring up and ask queries from. I can ring up and, you know, say, hey, what's going on with this? How can I help myself through this piece? And I'm just conscious, Joe, I think I've lost you on. Hey, Joe.
And we're back. So I apologize to those who are listening. Had a little technical difficulties. We're going to get Sam back on here in a second, hopefully. But for those that are watching, as we're waiting for her to come back on,
I'm here.
it's really important. Oh, there we got you. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back. So what you're saying is you have a group of colleagues, friends, and they really get to support each other that way.
And some mentors, some people who are further ahead in their business that I can go to, and also coaches as well. Like I'm a big believer in every coach should have a coach,
Mm.
because the more I'm able to work on myself every day, the more I'm able to then hold space for my clients. And so I have a great coach who I can call whenever anything comes up that I'm not able to work on myself. And
Mm.
they'll take me through what I need to work through and help me through that journey. And that's a big part of the help there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Having those, for me, I actually prefer mentors over coaches. And the reason is the differentiation is a mentor has been through those businesses or similar businesses, and a coach hasn't necessarily been through it, but they've been trained in methodologies to help. And for me, I've had 22 businesses over 30 years, and I don't do coaching, but I'll do mentorship primarily for women, and I only take three at a time. And it's just so awesome to get behind people and push and say, hey, listen, this is advice. You're gonna make your own decisions, and here's my experience, and here's what I think might work for you. And what worked for me may not work for you, but let's talk about the pros and the cons of this and go through some processes. And I just had a client today who's just absolutely amazing, and brings me so much joy to see her business thriving so much and being able to support in that. And the other option I think is, you don't necessarily always need it's I think it's always better to have like a real mentor if you can find one, whether that's many people will just do it for free, and other ones obviously you pay them for their time, which is very beautiful. But just having a group to get together that are your peers. So I do masterminds, and those are like we solve each other's problems, we take turns solving each other's problems. But it also could just be getting together with an entrepreneurs group
Mm.
in your area and doing the same thing, masterminding together and helping and being that support. Like, as an entrepreneur, one of the biggest mistakes I see myself make and other people make is just making all the decisions alone. You make an offer, a web page, a product, whatever it is, and you're just guessing. So by having a group to come in and go, you know what, that doesn't land so well, maybe change the wording here, or this feels a little funny. Like even small things like that can just go a long ways really fast, and trying to iterate with A/B testing and
Mhm.
with those types of things.
And also from an authenticity place, because authenticity is a journey, it's not a one place at all. And to be able to stay being in that integrity and authentic place, you need to be checking what that is for you and clearing the path. It's so easy to get in one's own way because we can only come from where we've been. And if that has had challenges or pieces missing, then by definition, how we're showing up could have pieces that, if we went further in the journey, would be even more aligned. And not that you're not aligned at that point, but I believe that I'll be more aligned in a year. Not that I'm not aligned now, simply because I'll be more of me because I'll have different lessons, different awarenesses, different things that I've released, all that kind of thing. And so by having other people to hold space or provide information, both of which have such value, to be able to clear what's the holding space to clear what's there and what's in your way, and then the information and the advice to be able to inspire you to take the next step. And they're so crucial for, keeping authentic and keeping in the right place.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. It's a constant journey in that space for sure. And, if we're taking steps day to day on our alignment and cutting out things that don't serve us, which sometimes is our clients,
Hmm.
sometimes we need to cut out the clients that don't serve us or taking up all the time, it leaves room for things that are really aligned, if there's, it's, and again, we become experts at the things that we need the most for ourselves. My high ADHD, sometimes I'm just all over the place, and I need to come back and be like, okay, what am I doing that's really important to me, that's making the impact, that feels really heart centered. And then sometimes a shiny object or the new business comes along, and I'm like, let's go over here. And I do that a little too often sometimes. So it's like, it can be a struggle. And are we enjoying the process of being an entrepreneur? How do we just relax into it, stay in our flow, and create the processes to support us so we can do what we actually really care about?
Absolutely, and that's why I think as well the word, I mean, the word holistic has kind of become a bit of a buzzword, but the true meaning of it then is really important because it's about meeting the other person where they're at, not
Yeah.
giving them a one size fits all. And not one of my clients that I've ever took through any of the bits of the process have I done the exact same thing every time, because
Mm.
who they are and how the condition is showing up for them and how their challenges are. If there was a one solution to something as big as a chronic illness like this, we'd have found it already.
Mm.
There are people out there in the medical community looking for the one pill that can cure endo, and I truly believe, unfortunately, that they won't find it because they're looking for a one pill.
Mm.
And this disease doesn't work that way. It's not predictable. It is not linear. It is not simple. And actually, who is, right? And so if we're able to adjust how we're showing up for somebody and the space that we're providing based on what they're needing right now, they're going to be able to get much better from it. And what's most important then, as opposed to some cookie cutter, if I want a cookie cutter approach, I'll download an ebook. And not that there's not value in them because they have information, but they may not
Mhm.
be as transformative as a deep dive holistic approach.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it's like we need the question that I always like to ask myself if I'm working in mentorships or masterminds is how do I best serve in this moment?
Mm.
You know, and I hear you asking the same thing.
Yeah.
Sam, it's really great to have you on. Thank you for taking your time and thank you for doing some beautiful work. And if you got endo and you need some help, reach out to Sam on Instagram. It's Sam underscore the endo coach. The website is theendocoach.co.uk. I'll put it in the show notes. And if you're an entrepreneur and you want to be around other smart entrepreneurs, helping each other, masterminding, reach out to me. I have a lot of free processes. I have a lot of things that I love to serve others with. I read every one of my messages personally, and that's important to me. So reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks everyone for being with us today. Have a great
Thanks,
night.
James. Thanks, everyone.